The call came through the car speakers just as the gravel crunched beneath my tires in the driveway. It was late afternoon, the sun dipping below the horizon, casting long, stretching shadows across the lawn of the Victorian estate I had just purchased. "Is this Nathaniel Sterling?" the voice asked. It was older, brittle, sounding like dry leaves scraping together. "Speaking," I answered, shifting the gear into park. "Who is this?" "It's Arthur Abernathy, the previous owner." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "Mr. Abernathy, if this is about the forwarded mail, It's not about mail," he cut in, his urgency silencing me. "I forgot something critical. I almost didn't call, but my conscience wouldn't let me sleep." I hesitated, hand hovering over the ignition. "What did you forget?" "There is a security camera," he said, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "It's micro-sized, hidden inside the decorative rosette of the living room chandelier. I installed it years ago when my wife got sick, to monitor the nurses. I forgot to disconnect it." My eyes shot up to the house. Through the bay window, I could see the warm glow of lamps. "Okay? So I'll just take it down." "No, you don't understand," Abernathy stammered. "It never stopped recording. It's been uploading a continuous stream to my private cloud server for the last 4 months." The air in the car suddenly felt very thin. "You've been watching us?" "No, I only opened the old folder today by accident," he insisted, sounding terrified. "I was looking for tax documents, but the feed was live, and what I saw 10 minutes ago. Nathaniel, I think you need to see it immediately." My chest tightened, a cold vice gripping my heart. "What did you see?" Silence stretched on the line, heavy and suffocating. "I can't tell you over the phone," he finally said. "And do not let your wife know I called. This isn't just a mistake, son. It is a warning. Come to my cabin. Alone. Now." The line clicked dead. I sat frozen in the leather seat, staring at the house that was supposed to be my sanctuary. Inside, I could see Veronica laughing, holding a glass of wine, looking like the picture of a perfect wife. But as I stared at her silhouette, I realized the accident of a forgotten lens had just shattered my reality. I wasn't looking at my home anymore. I was looking at a crime scene. As I pulled away from the house, a sinking feeling settled in my gut, heavy and cold like a stone. It felt as though that phone call had torn a thin, protective veil off a life I thought I understood, revealing something rotting underneath. Whatever Mr. Abernathy had seen, it wasn't just a technical glitch, it was a fracture in my reality. Mr. Abernathy lived 20 minutes away in a secluded, weather-beaten cabin tucked behind a dense line of pines. When he opened the door, his hands were visibly trembling. "I didn't mean to get involved," he said, his voice wavering as he ushered me inside. "But I lived in that house for 42 years. It and you deserved better than what I witnessed." He led me to a cluttered oak desk and opened a thick laptop. I backed up the recording. "I'm not keeping it, and I've wiped the local drive. But you have a right to see the truth." He clicked play. The screen flickered to life, showing a high-angle, fisheye view of the living room. My living room. The timestamp in the corner showed it was last Friday. I had been stuck at the architecture firm until nearly 8 that evening. On screen, Veronica walked in, looking radiant in a way that now made my stomach turn. Her mother, Eleanor, followed close behind, and then her sister, Bianca. They weren't just hanging out. They were celebrating. Bianca popped the cork on a bottle of vintage wine, a bottle I had been saving for our anniversary, and poured 3 generous glasses. They clinked crystal, their laughter tinny and distorted through the small microphone of the camera. Veronica plopped onto the plush beige sofa, kicking her feet up. "I can't believe he actually fell for it. All that sentimental crap about building a legacy together," she mocked, mimicking my voice. Eleanor took a long sip, her eyes narrowing with greed. "You did the hard part, sweetie. He's renovated the place, increased the equity. Now we just make sure he stays buried in his blueprints while we finalize the switch." "The switch?" I whispered, leaning closer to the laptop screen. The video kept rolling. Veronica reached into her designer tote and pulled out a thick manila folder containing a stack of papers. She waved them in the air like a trophy. The power of attorney documents? She smirked, tossing them onto the coffee table. He signed them, thinking they were the new insurance policy writers. You were right, Mom. He didn't even read the fine print. I stared at the screen, my blood turning to ice. The man beside me turned down the volume, sensing my devastation. There's more, Abernathy said softly, but you get the idea. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. Power of attorney. They weren't just laughing behind my back. They were orchestrating a complete dismantling of my life. That specific legal authority would give them control over everything, my finances, my decisions, my property. They were gutting me from the inside out while smiling in my face every morning over coffee. The sheer magnitude of the betrayal hit me like a physical blow. I stood up slowly, the room spinning slightly. Send me the whole file, I said, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears, every second of it, because now I have a plan. And I won't be the fool again. By the time I got home that night, the facade was back in place. Veronica kissed my cheek, asking if I'd picked up the dry cleaning, her voice syrupy sweet. Bianca was scrolling on her phone in the living room, ignoring me as usual, while Eleanor was arranging flowers in the foyer like she owned the place. It was a terrifying performance of normalcy. I watched them, every fake smile and calculated word now tasting like ash in my mouth. I nodded, I smiled, I played the doting husband, because what they didn't know was that I had the recording. I had the proof, and I wasn't going to confront them. Not yet. I needed more ammunition. Over the next few days, I played the role of the exhausted provider perfectly. I pretended to be buried in a new skyscraper project, distracted and dull. But while they slept or went out for spa days, I went to work. I planted high-fidelity microphones hidden in the kitchen molding, the hallway sconces, and even taped one under the mahogany dining table. I wired a redundant feed directly into the router and upgraded the original cloud storage capacity without triggering a single notification. They were too arrogant, too confident in their victory, to notice the blinking lights of their own downfall. That's when the real conversations started flowing. Bianca, are you sure he won't notice the transfer? Veronica, please. He's pathetic. He trusts you blindly. I say we wait 10 more days. Once the liquid funds move, he's useless. Then we cut him off clean, Eleanor added, her voice dripping with malice through the audio feed. Tell him we need space, file for separation, and sell the property before he realizes his name is off the title. That night, I sat in my home office, staring at the glowing monitor, fists clenched until my knuckles turned white. My mouth was dry, but my heart was absolute ice. They weren't just planning a breakup. They had scheduled my destruction, and I was currently funding the whole operation. So, I opened a blank spreadsheet. Step 1, hire a private lawyer. Step 2, pull every asset back under my control quietly. Step 3, give them the performance of a lifetime. The lawyer I hired, Leonard Graves, worked in a limestone building on the edge of town that smelled of old paper and expensive scotch. He wasn't a billboard attorney. He was a surgical instrument in a suit. I didn't tell him everything immediately, just enough to start the gears turning. I need to quietly revoke the power of attorney I signed 8 months ago, I said, sliding the copy across his desk. He frowned, adjusting his spectacles. You understand that revoking it without notice could raise suspicion? I'm counting on that, I replied, but not until the trap is shut. We filed the preliminary papers that same afternoon. Leonard advised me to create a firewall around my finances. By Friday, I had started moving personal assets under the protection of a new trust. I drained the joint bank accounts down to the minimum balance, transferred the brokerage portfolios, and most importantly, secured the deed to the property. They thought they were safe, that I was blind to their maneuvering. But in reality, all I left behind were empty shells, the financial carcasses they were circling like vultures, completely unaware the meat was already gone. Then came the next step, the bait. That weekend, I walked into the living room with a grin so wide it hurt my face. Guess what, Veronica? I announced, loosening my tie. The firm just landed the Dubai contract. I got a raise, a massive one. Her eyes sparkled instantly, that predatory glint I now recognized. Bianca clapped her hands, looking up from her magazine. Eleanor, sipping her tea, nodded approvingly. Knew you had it in you, Nate. I leaned into the act with everything I had. I booked fancy dinners at the city's most exclusive steakhouses, bought a new Italian suit I didn't need, and even presented Veronica with a diamond tennis bracelet as a thank you for her support. They thought their plan had time. They thought they were winning, fattening the calf before the slaughter. But what they didn't know was that I already owned the stage. They were just reading lines in a play I was directing, and the curtain was about to fall. I just needed the final act, and it had to be unforgettable. 2 days before their planned switch, I overheard Veronica on the phone in the backyard. I stood in the darkened kitchen, sipping my coffee, watching her pace through the window like she was rehearsing for a role. It's happening next week, she whispered into her cell, likely to her lover or another accomplice. He's completely in the dark. I've got the forged signature prepped on the transfer documents. His name will be off the deed before he even blinks. Her whole life with me was a con, a long play, and she was proud of it. That night, I emailed a special packet to Leonard Graves. It contained every voice recording, the cloud videos from Abernathy, the updated power of attorney revocation, and the high-resolution photos of the forged signature practice sheets I'd found in her desk. Prepare the final package, I wrote. Emergency legal motion. I want everything ready by Tuesday. Quietly, Leonard replied with one line. Asterisk. It'll be beautiful. Asterisk. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I invited them all to a special dinner at home for Friday. A celebration, I said. The bonus check cleared. They bought it. Hook, line, and greed. I grilled expensive steaks, opened the best bottles of wine, and even wore the bracelet Veronica had given me 6 months ago, a token of her love. They joked, laughed, toasted to my success, and I kept smiling right until Bianca clinked her glass and said, "To Veronica, the heart of this home." They all laughed, a sound that grated on my nerves. I stood up, raised my glass too, and said, "Let's toast again next Tuesday. I'll have something very special for you then." They cheered, eyes shining with anticipation of the money they thought was coming. They didn't know. But Tuesday wasn't payday. Tuesday was the day everything they built on lies would come crashing down. Tuesday came. I wore a plain gray shirt. No watch, no cologne, just a terrifying sense of calm. Veronica came down the stairs in a striking red dress, looking ready for a gala. Bianca was already pouring mimosas in the kitchen. Eleanor was on the phone, loudly bragging to her bridge club about this being her last week in someone else's house. They thought today was Victory Day. At Naganay. M. Sharp. The doorbell rang. Veronica looked confused. "Who is that?" "We didn't order anything." I opened the door. Leonard Graves stepped inside, looking grim, clutching a thick manila folder. Behind him stood a uniformed court officer, hand resting on his belt. "Nathaniel." Leonard nodded. "Ready?" I turned to the women. "Ladies, take a seat. You'll want to hear this." Veronica scoffed, crossing her arms. "What is this about, Nate? Who are these people?" The court officer stepped forward and unfolded a document. "Veronica Sterling, you are being served a cease and desist order related to attempted property fraud and signature forgery." Bianca stood up so fast her chair screeched against the floor. "What the hell is this?" Leonard smiled faintly, a shark sensing blood. "Also, you'll notice Mr. Sterling has filed for an immediate asset freeze on all joint accounts, pending a federal fraud investigation." Eleanor screamed, dropping her phone. "You can't do this! That's our money!" I leaned forward, resting my hands on the table. "Oh, but I did. While you were planning how to cut me out, I took back everything. You own nothing. This house? Mine. The bank accounts? Frozen. The assets? Transferred." I pointed to the diamond bracelet on Veronica's wrist. "Bought with my card. I'll be taking that back too." Veronica stood frozen, her face draining of all color. "And one more thing," I added, sliding a silver USB stick across the mahogany table. "This contains all your recorded conversations from the last week. I've already sent copies to my attorney, and the cloud backup is secured. Any retaliation? It goes public. The room went silent. I had just declared war, and they knew they'd already lost before the first shot was fired. Veronica's eyes darted around the room, looking for an escape that didn't exist. Bianca grabbed the USB stick like she could physically crush the evidence. "You're insane!" she hissed. "No," I said, my voice steady. "I was naive. There's a difference. But now I see everything clearly." They didn't move. "Pack your things," I said coldly. "You have until sunset." "But this is our home," Eleanor shouted, her face twisting ugly. "No, it's mine," I corrected. "And don't forget the mortgage, title, utilities, and every account are solely in my name again. Your names aren't on anything. You gambled everything on a fake signature, and you lost." Bianca's voice cracked. "We were just trying to help Veronica. She deserves more." "More than what?" I asked, stepping closer. "More than building a life together?" "She didn't want a partnership. She wanted control. But I gave you respect, love, trust, and you turned my life into a game." Veronica tried to play the victim, tears welling up instantly. "Please, Nate, let's talk. Don't do this in front of them." "In front of them?" I laughed, a harsh sound. "You involved them. You plotted with them." I pointed to the officer. "Escort them out if they aren't gone by 6. I walked past them and up the stairs. For once, silence followed me. Downstairs, the sound of drawers opening, bags zipping, and broken women muttering to each other replaced the venom they'd once spat with pride. I had taken back everything, but I wasn't done yet. The final piece of revenge would leave a scar they'd carry forever. By the time sunset painted the sky in streaks of blood, orange, and bruised purple, their suitcases were piled haphazardly on the curb. Veronica was the last to step out, mascara running down her cheeks in black rivulets, still trying to process how her empire had crumbled in a single afternoon. She looked up at the window, hoping to see me, hoping for a last-minute reprieve. But I wasn't watching from the window. I was already downtown, standing in a glass-walled boardroom on the 40th floor of the Sterling & Cooper building. I handed over the last file to the senior partner, a man Veronica had idolized since law school. "You sure you want this to go forward?" the partner asked, tapping the folder. I nodded. She forged legal documents. She used private client recordings in an attempt to extort me, and there's evidence she tried to manipulate business assets. He exhaled slowly. "Then she'll never practice law again. Not in this state. Maybe not anywhere." I stood and shook his hand. "That's the point." By midnight, Veronica's license had been flagged for ethical review. Her internship offers were rescinded. Her LinkedIn was already buzzing with questions she couldn't answer. I sent one last message from a burner email to her personal account. Asterisk. "You built your life by lying to mine. Now build it again from nothing." Asterisk. I deleted the address and tossed the phone into the recycling bin. Back home, I sat on the porch with a glass of amber bourbon, the ice clinking softly against the glass. The cold night air bit my skin, but inside, I felt clean. For the first time in months, the house was silent. Not the silence of secrets, but the silence of peace. They thought they were smarter. They thought I'd stay quiet to save face. They thought love meant I'd never fight back. But I didn't just fight. Winning meant burning the battlefield so they could never return. And the best part? They'd never even seen the match being lit.